All right, we're back with Medical Monday right here on News Channel 5+. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this evening. Of course, we have Dr. David Gnewikow of Advanced Hearing Solutions joining us tonight. We always love having him in the studio because he's answering your questions, and we've had some great questions tonight. We really have. We appreciate those calls. Numbers right there on your screen if you want to join in on the conversation. Anything you need to know, happy to answer it.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about kind of approaching that conversation. It's a delicate one to have. Any advice and maybe signs to look for?
So if you have a family member, whether that's a spouse or mom or dad, that you know that they're having a hearing problem, the first thing I'll say is they probably know also. You know, I've had a lot of patients come in and, you know, husband or wife dragging them in. I don't have a problem. She just tells me I can't hear. He just thinks I can't hear. And when I test them and when I explain it, they know. You know, they say, yeah, I am having some of those problems. So to encourage those people, I give a couple of tips. The first thing is, this is really not a scary office visit. We were talking in the break about, there's a lot of people just don't like to go to the doctor. Okay, first off, there's no needles, there's no pain. This is not a scary visit. I look at these first evaluations that we do, and as I mentioned to a previous caller, the first evaluation we do at no charge. We schedule an hour and a half of the audiologist time to sit down. You pay nothing. We do a hearing test, but more than a hearing test, we try to really understand what's gotten us to this point. Why are you sitting here? What are your frustrations? What can we do to help? So I think that's a real key to helping kind of ease or urge that family member or friend to do it. Is like, okay, you don't have anything to lose. I will guarantee you that if someone walks into my office, they don't get a high pressure sales pitch. We look at this, we were talking about science and compassion. I look at this as education. You know, it's taken that person a long time to make this decision. We want them to really understand what's going on, what can be done to help, what expectations should they have, what expectations should their spouse have. In fact, we urge a spouse to come to that visit with them, or a significant other, just so that they hear those same things. In fact, I can't say how many times I've had a husband or wife that I'm talking to and they say, I wish my husband were here to hear you say this, because you're telling me I don't really have selective hearing. I'm really missing out on some things. So making that first visit easy and comfortable is extremely important. The other thing that I say is we let people try hearing aids before they buy them. So there is absolutely nothing to lose. In fact, when I tell people that, they go, what's the catch? Like, there's really not one. We ask for a security deposit so that people won't steal my hearing aids, but that security deposit's 100% refundable. So literally, sometimes we see people 4 or 5 visits and they pay $0. But we do that because I'm confident that if we make a recommendation that we can help you, that you're really going to see some benefit with that. So those are kind of the best things. And honestly, it takes time for people to make those type of decisions. It's not usually something where the first time you say, honey, you need to go see the audiologist, that they jump in the car and drive over. It usually takes a little bit of time, but education is probably really big too.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about some of the signs that you need to look for. I mean, obviously some of them are obvious. You know, when you're in the other room, you know, sometimes that person just can't hear you anymore. Maybe it's selective hearing, maybe not. But what should people really look for?
So we've already talked about one. We had 2 callers that asked about tinnitus, ringing in the ears. That is usually a sign that there is some existence of hearing loss. May not necessarily mean it's bad, but that's usually a sign. 2 other really big ones. The first is, I don't have a problem hearing, I just don't understand what people are saying. I can hear great. I can hear stuff that my wife can't hear, but I can't understand voices. The reason for that is it's a loss of the ability to hear high pitches. So consonant sounds like S's and T's and K's and F are soft, high-pitched sounds. Vowel sounds are low-pitched, ah, e, a. So most people have a high-frequency hearing loss. Most people can still hear the loudness of words that comes from vowels, but they lose clarity. Now, did you say fit or sit? Did you say ball or fall, or 15 or 16? I could go on and on with that. But a lot of times people think, well, that must not be a hearing loss. It must just mean my brain's not working as well as it used to, because I can hear her, but I just didn't understand what she said. That is absolutely a sign of hearing loss. The third one, and this kind of ties back into what I was just saying, is problems in background noise. So if I had, let's just say I had a 20% hearing loss. You and I could sit here all day and carry on a conversation if I had a 20% hearing loss, and I would never miss anything that you said. Doesn't mean I hear every syllable, but I'm getting enough information that I can fully understand our conversation. Or I can sit down one-on-one with somebody, or I can watch TV and do fine with a 20% hearing loss. But put me in a noisy restaurant. Background noise takes away sound because it covers up. If I'm listening to you and somebody's noisy over here and somebody's noisy over here, I don't hear everything you say. Well, now my hearing loss is taken away 20% and the background noise is taken away 20%. And now I'm only getting 60% of what you say. And as hearing loss gets worse, so many of my patients say, if I go in a restaurant without my hearing aids, I hear it's all jumbled together. And so those are probably the biggest three. Those are really the early warning signs that something's going on.
Yeah, definitely an environmental factor there as well.
Yes, certainly.
It's summertime. Any advice on how to protect our ears from any hearing loss?
Sure. So protecting from hearing loss is really about what you're doing. Loud rock concerts. We're in Nashville. There's a few concerts that happen around here. You may not know that, but
really?
that happens a lot. To me, the best way to protect for that is something called musicians' earplugs. Several different companies make them. They're not terribly expensive, maybe $50 for a pair. But when we put in earplugs, let's just say you go get some foam earplugs. Everybody has seen those before. Foam earplugs change the frequency of the sound. It kills what's called the natural resonance of our ear. So most people do not like to go to a concert and put in foam earplugs because yes, it brings the sound down and it makes it less loud, but it doesn't sound like what it's supposed to. Musicians' plugs actually filter the sound to compensate for what our ear normally does. So it's actually a filtered response that sounds much, much more natural when you're listening to music. It just lowers everything. So that's one piece of advice for all you club and concert aficionados here in Nashville is musicians' plugs are a good way to go. For those of us that like to use power equipment, I've got a tractor and a lawnmower and a weed eater and way more grass than I care to talk about that I have to cut. I usually just use foam plugs for that. Just the cheap, you can get them at a sporting goods store. You can probably get them at a lot of other retailers. They do a great job. They're pretty comfortable to wear. Problem is you can't hear anything. So they're just basically shutting down. On kind of a higher level, as we wind from summer into fall, if you're like me and if you're like Casey's boyfriend, we've already talked about this, we're hunters. So we like to be in the outdoors, hunting, there's shooting, there's target practice. There's some really cool technology out there now that protects your hearing but also amplifies the sounds that are going on. So it lets the hunter be able to better hear his environment or be able to better hear his buddies making fun of him, but shuts off when you shoot a gun. So those are so many different levels of hearing protection. Naturally, the electronic ones are a little bit more expensive, but for a hunter, they're a really great option. That's a good gift idea for you guys at Christmas.
That's right. I'm going to write that one down, actually. I think he just has selective hearing at this point. But let's talk a little bit about the importance of, I don't think about going out to mow my yard and I should put, some sort of, protection on my ears. At what age do you kind of notice people are starting to do that more and more, and when should they really start preventing that?
So when I was in college, I went to college in Nashville, and when you're a male in college in Nashville in the summer, you work on a mowing crew. There's mowing crews everywhere, and so I did that. And I didn't think anything about protecting my hearing. And I was using a weed eater and a gas blower and a lawnmower, 10 hours a day, all day long. That's bad. What causes hearing loss is not just something being loud, but it's loudness multiplied by how long I'm doing it. So if I go mow my yard once a week for an hour, and unless I have a really loud lawnmower, I'm not saying it's not a good idea to wear hearing protection. It probably is, but I'm probably not doing terrible damage. Weed eaters are different because it's a lot higher frequency, it's a lot louder, it's a lot closer to your ear. I have one of these crazy zero-turn mowers where the motor is right behind me. It's very loud because I'm closer to that motor. Chainsaws are super loud. So it's all about the proximity and how loud that is. But again, if I'm going to go cut one limb, should I put in hearing protection? Yes, I probably should. But the more likelihood of doing damage is long-term use. So if you mow big areas, lots of time with the weed eater, lots of time with the chainsaw, absolutely hering protection is a must for that.
That makes me feel better. That's a personal, self-serving question I had asked there, because you go your whole life thinking, oh great, I've never, I've put on earmuffs when I'm mowing, or let's be honest, I don't do a lot of yard work, but but in case I would be.
A push mower or a riding mower is really not bad.
Yeah.
But some of these, again, these bigger mowers now that have the exhaust right behind the driver can be a lot more damaging for hearing. So these guys that are out there doing that for a living absolutely need to do something to protect their hearing.
Okay, kind of situational, case to case, and back to frequencies is very interesting to talk about as well. When you were talking about voices, and you said higher pitch voices, or when we start to notice that sound dropping out.
Right, exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about your practice, kind of where it's located. As folks are tuning in tonight, let them know a little bit more about the process of reaching out to you all. And you talked about that initial consultation and kind of told us, it's not scary.
Sure. So my practice is Advanced Hearing Solutions. We're in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. Been there going on 13 years now. We are right on North Mount Juliet Road. So if any of you guys know Mount Juliet at all, I'm about a half a mile from the interstate, right on Mount Juliet Road, on our own building there. So a fantastic location, very easy to get to. Our telephone number, I'll throw that out there, 615-758-7999. You can find us on the web at hearlife.org, HEARLIFE.org. And you can find out all about us online, about our practices, read our reviews. I'm very proud. We've got, 55 five-star reviews on Google from our patients. So we're very proud of that. We strive, like we've been talking about through the show, we strive to really find a way to help every patient that comes in here. I had a patient today, couldn't speak English, no insurance, no way to pay for what our services are, but we figured out a way to help that guy. We found an agency that could help. And so we really look to figure out a way, figure out a way to address the reason that gets that person to come in. And sometimes that's as simple as, I need to hear my wife better. Sometimes it's way more complicated, that I'm going to lose my job if I can't be able to do this. Or I'm a truck driver, I need to be able to talk on the phone. Bluetooth doesn't work for me because I have hearing loss. Can we get something to fix that? There are solutions, as we've talked about through this show, that can help almost anybody. Our first visit is free. We've talked about that. So you just call our office, set up an appointment, come in, we'll do a consultation, and we'll figure out how we can help.
Well, it sounds like too, it's not just about getting the problem of getting your hearing fixed and getting that, taken care of. It's also you're gaining your quality of life back.
Sure. In fact, even on a bigger scale, so there's lots of research that talks about hearing loss and quality of life. There's also a lot of research that talks about hearing loss and dementia, hearing loss and Alzheimer's disease. And I don't say this as a scare tactic to make people call and schedule an appointment with our office, but people with a mild to moderate hearing loss are 2 times more likely to develop dementia. People with a significant, moderate to severe hearing loss are 4 times more likely to develop dementia. And the simple reason is it's so much harder, and if anybody's watching this show with hearing loss, you know this. It is so much harder for somebody with hearing loss to do normal activities because they spend so much energy listening. I have patients tell me all the time, I'm exhausted at the end of my workday because I have to focus so much more in a meeting than my normal hearing counterpart that sits next to me. Because if I'm only getting 60%, I'm having to really, really focus and look at you and read your lips and fill in blanks. And so there's something called the cognitive load theory that says people who don't hear as well, exert so much cognitive energy that it has negative effects on their overall brain health. And so I don't say that to be scary, but it's quality of life. It's things like dementia. Untreated hearing loss has a higher incidence of falls in the elderly. That has to do with balance and environmental awareness. It's associated with anxiety and depression. And so again, I don't use these as scare tactics to say people need to call our office, but this is so much bigger than just missing the punchline to the joke.
Well, I think that it's about educating your patients. I can tell as you talk, that's one of the most important things is, really, even if they walk away and never enter your office again, as long as you've helped educate them and maybe, like I said, given that quality of life back.
Sure.
So it's such a great conversation always having you here. We are learning so much, and we have a little bit of time left in our show that I do want to encourage you to give us a call. Again, this is great medical advice for free from Dr. David Gnewikow of Advanced Hearing Solutions. And just really, it's about educating you and kind of gaining that quality life back when it comes to your hearing, because it is very important to be able to understand one another. It's about connections. So
Absolutely.
we're going to take another quick break. Keep it right here, and we'll be right back.